Hey, what up, everybody? This is Steve Breach coming to you, talking a little bit about a Periscope, an app that I honestly don't use, but I know a lot of you guys out there do. And TSN handed over their Periscope account to Bret Hart, who interacted and talked with fans yesterday, doing a little bit of a Q&A session. And during this Q&A, it was brought up the topic of CM Punk, where Bret Hart said that CM Punk was the last of a generation. He stood up for all of the things that were right, and he does really respect CM Punk for leaving, basically saying that wrestling hasn't been the same since CM Punk walked out, which, honestly, I can tell you that, I was never the biggest CM Punk fan, but CM Punk matches were the matches that I know that in the future, when I want to watch a great wrestling match from this sort of era of wrestling, most of the time it's going to be CM Punk matches that I want to watch, because I want to watch actual real wrestling. I know that they don't like to call themselves wrestlers anymore. They're sports entertainment. But when it all fades out, maybe, when you look back and you think about the storylines and the matches of the past, maybe you remember, a really bad storyline that had no ending, or something that just, was really wacky and out of there. But for me, most of the time, I remember, those really good matches, the ones that really hooked you in and you couldn't look away from the television. A match like, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 1991, Triple H versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 27, Kurt Angle against Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 21. These are like the classic matches of the time period that you go back and watch at least, once or twice a year, because you want to remember why you're into this. Honestly, you can say that wrestling hasn't been as hip. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it hasn't been on the verge of being, right at the lip of pop culture since CM Punk walked out. But I don't think that's because CM Punk isn't with the company anymore. If you think about the things that have gone down, definitely if you think about WrestleMania 30, which was right after CM Punk leaving the company, that was a high point for the company, and who knows how long they would have rode the Daniel Bryan wave. But I definitely think WrestleMania 30 was one of the greatest WrestleMania trips, and one of the greatest WrestleManias that I had ever been a part of. You had two great Daniel Bryan matches. You had Brock Lesnar beating the streak by beating Undertaker. That was something that we never thought we would ever see. Definitely a very fun WrestleMania. I know there was some hokey pokey times, sort of riding the wave. After that, normally, always when you get into that sort of fall time from Halloween until the Royal Rumble, to me, WrestleMania or wrestling, it gets kind of stale. But I think that happens every year. Even when CM Punk was in the company, I mean, when you look at what happened at WrestleMania 31, with Sting coming into the company, with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, the question is Brock Lesnar going to leave? Is he going to stay? And then, Seth Rollins cashing in. I think that what's going on with wrestling right now is that basically we are just in sort of like a time period gap. If you think about wrestling, once the 80s were over, that golden era of Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ted DiBiase, I don't know why I want to say Coco Beware, and then you got into this gap of like when Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Diesel took over. That's looked at as a really down point of the business, because wrestling fell so hard, because people that were sort of just sort of wrestling fans, they sort of looked at Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels as these guys that were in tag teams as the Hart Foundation and the Rockers, and they didn't want to believe in them as guys that should be in the main event of WrestleMania. But that was because they were only attached to the guys like Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man, Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper, and they weren't around anymore. So, that's sort of why WCW took off and became so much bigger. But for the fans that stuck with WWF and they were actually watching, there was horrible stuff that was going on. Duke the Dumpster Droese, Doink, T.L. Hopper, all of the horrible characters that Vince McMahon came up with over the time, which would be the basis of what, wrestle crap is today. If you were watching those main events, they had The Undertaker, they had, Stone Cold Steve Austin come along, and even before the point of the Attitude Era taking off, he was there having, really good matches, even if they were against Savio Vega, a guy that, a lot of people don't really remember or think about. But, the fans that remember that time period remember there was good matches. It just wasn't horrible at that time period. You know, you had Shawn Michaels, you had Sid, and you know, it was always sort of that thing where maybe the undercard for WWF sucked, but the main event was always worth the money, and made you, when you turned off the pay-per-view that night, you knew that you got your money's worth, because what you actually paid for was that main event, and it actually did deliver. So I think that's what we're in right now. You got guys, you got Roman Reigns, you got Dean Ambrose, you've got Seth Rollins, and you've got Neville, you've got Prince Devitt coming up sooner than later, you've got Kevin Owens. There's a lot of talent that's very young inside of WWE right now that's going to be transitioning into being the future. We're in that transition period. Yes, it sucks, but I think that we're going to be coming out of it, and when we get there, we're going to be on fire, and it's going to be great. I think that's what we're chasing right now.